In this critique, I'll be analyzing Percival's The Book Thief through a Marxist and feminist lens. The Book Thief was first published as a novel by Mark Cusack in 2005. It was only until October 2013 when it premiered as a movie in the Mill Valley Film Festival. The movie, directed by Percival, depicts the myths of the Holocaust in a World War II historical setting. While subjected to the horrors in the World War in Nazi Germany, the tragic loss of her brother, and the abandonment of her birth mother at the start of the movie, Liesl finds comfort in borrowing books in hopes of learning how to read with her new foster family. Her foster stepmother, Rosa Huberman, is a tempered but caring woman, and her stepfather, Hans Huberman, is a simple, kind-hearted man. Although they happily welcome young Liesl into their modest home, they struggle to provide basic necessities for her as a result of the Nazi poverty-stricken society. Just as Liesl finally adapts to her new family and befriends her new neighbor, Rudy Steiner, their situation becomes even more precarious when they acquire the responsibility of hiding the Jewish boy in their home, Max, whose father once saved Hans' life. First, I'll be analyzing the text through a Marxist lens. In literature, the Marxist lens is used to criticize a subject by presenting a unique argument in a communist frame of reference and to expose the predominant capitalist, or in this case, fascist values reflected in the text. Analyzing Percival's The Book Thief through a Marxist lens reveals a pro-Marxist critique of fascism. It portrays the political and social ramifications of the war on the working class and calls into question the superiority of the bourgeoisie in a fascist society. By analyzing the predominant clips of the video, it becomes clear that the setting displays an impoverished lifestyle through an old cinematic production lens. It presents shots of low-class communities, traditional German families, and Nazi flags invading the town, all collectively displaying the war-infiltrated lifestyle. In a scene, Hans says, "We barely have enough to feed ourselves," once he realizes the poor state his family is in, especially now with their burden of keeping Max, a forbidden Jew, alive in their house. This immediately gives the viewer a brief outline on how negatively war affected the working class, particularly in a fascist-dominant society. The first explicit proof of this in the movie was the portrayal of the class division between the minorities, notably Jews and communists, versus the fascist upper class. As the movie presents the historical events of the World War, we introduce the infamous Nazi superiority that ruled Europe during that era, while the minorities were exterminated. Those who were members of the Nazi Party and supported the Fuhrer government acquired many economic and social benefits for their family that promised their survival during the difficult periods of the war. In a scene, Rudy describes one of the bourgeoisie's houses by saying, "Do you see any other houses looking like this? He had dinner with the Fuhrer once." This amplifies the dominance that the fascists had on society, as only the members who glorified and served the dictator earned the benefit of living luxuriously, having access to food, money, wealthy housing, and etc. The only ones who profited from this fascist war were in fact the upper class, as it allowed them to get richer and richer, while the minorities of the lower class struggled to survive. It is for this reason that, although Liesl's family was not in favor of fascism, considering Hans was not a member of the party, they still felt obligated to hang the Nazi flag in front of their house on Hitler's birthday, just like everyone else in the community. Rosa said, "Hans, where did you put the flag? If we don't find it, it will look like we're saying something." In a Marxist lens, this scene is essential to understanding the dreadful social and economic ramifications of the fascist war, as it forces the lower-class families to settle for the Nazi government simply in order to survive. Moreover, in a World War II timeframe, fascist propaganda was filtered into everyone's mind in a German society. Children were forced to memorize and chant the Nazi hymn at school, encouraged to burn Jewish books at Nazi parades, and the streets of Germany were covered in pro-Nazi posters, ultimately enforcing anti-freedom of thought and expression. Specifically, in one of the scenes during the Nazi parades, the Fuhrer encourages the crowd to repeat after him, "We will exterminate the illness," while supporting the public to burn the Jewish-made books. The illness that he's referring to are the minorities that the fascists aim to socially banish in order to maintain their class hierarchy in society and eliminate any freedom of thought and speech that does not fit within the fascist doctrines. With the Jews and communists resisting dictatorial power, the Fuhrer cannot have full control over the population, which in a fascist-dominant society is the greatest threat. The last scene that proves this rude reality is when Hans tried to stand up for one of his low-class Jewish neighbors that had his store smashed by the Nazi soldier and was being abused on the streets. As a result of this failed heroic act, Hans was attacked and had his name written down by the Nazi notebook. This is crucial to recognizing the exploitation of power and dominance that the fascists and bourgeoisie had on the society. If one were to rebel against the fascist doctrines, they would suffer various consequences. Having your name written down not only leaves a negative record for the individual but their entire family. This meant minimal opportunities for survival through the war, such as less access to resources and shelter when most needed. Overall, applying the Marxist lens to The Book Thief reveals a pro-Marxist critique of fascism that portrays the political and social ramifications of the war on the working class and calls us to question the superiority of the bourgeoisie in a fascist society. Next, I'll be analyzing the movie through a feminist lens. Feminist criticism brings awareness to the prominent gender roles and stereotypes expressed in text in purpose of advocating for equal rights and empowering women. Analyzing Percival's The Book Thief through a feminist lens reveals a pro-feminist movie that exposes the anti-feminist history of World War II, perpetuating the traditional gender roles. The first proof that reveals the anti-feminist history is the degradation of Liesel the moment she arrived to her new foster family. When Rosa noticed that her brother did not survive the trip to come with her, she was furious. Her reaction was shameful, disdaining Liesel, a girl, as if she was not as worthy as much as her male brother. Rosa said, "Where's the boy? They promised us 2 children with 2 allowances. Have you seen that girl? Filthy, dirty, and stupid." This proves the superior value men had compared to women during that period of time. In addition, Liesel suffered various forms of verbal abuse from boys at school at the beginning of the movie, which further shows the minimal appreciation of women in a German society. In one of the scenes, the school bully Franz was making fun of Liesel for not being able to read, which resulted in Liesel punching him in front of the whole school. This scene demonstrated Liesel's breaking point. After enduring prolonged bullying and oppression as a girl, it finally leads her into doing an act of resistance, which was common for many women during that era. This moment reflected the movie's pro-feminist perspective, with the scene supporting women empowerment as Liesel defends herself to the biggest bully and proves her worth. Following this idea of women's gender norms during the 1930s and 40s period of history, women had a distinct role in the family of housekeeping and nurturing their children. In the movie, Rosa's job was to clean the laundry and iron clothes for the wealthy family at the end of the street in order to gain some income for her own family. Although Rosa is doing traditional woman's work, she's embodying a more masculine character since she has the role of working and bringing home money in order to sustain her family rather than her husband. In addition to this, Rosa portrays an overall rough character that is not sentimental towards anyone, including Hans and Liesel. For example, she constantly makes rude remarks calling them Sauerkraut and Sommensches, criticizing them for their incompetence around the house. Her character directly challenges these traditional modes of gender roles that are predominant in this period of history, of women being the soft and loving parent in the family. On the other hand, German men had the role of attending war in order to gain money for their family and, most importantly, proudly serve Hitler. Contrarily, Hans refused to join because he was secretly never in favor of the Fuhrer government. Due to this, he was repeatedly shamed by many people throughout the movie. In one of the scenes, the soldier said to Hans, "You should have taken my advice and joined the party, then your wife wouldn't have to break her back." This comment was strategically made in purpose of guilt-trapping and manipulating Hans into joining the army, in order to defend his pride of being a real German man. Following this, Rosa also makes a comment shaming Hans by calling him a lazy Sauerkraut, meaning pig. This amplifies the strict gender expectation that men had in the period of time in order to be deemed as good, hardworking fathers. Along with this, Hans portrays a more feminine inclined character compared to Rosa. He nurtured Liesel from the day she moved into the family and took initiative to teach her how to read, a role often associated with the mother. Overall, his character challenges the gender norms of men, especially in Nazi Germany, which magnifies the pro-feminist perspective of the movie. To conclude, based on the feminist lens, The Book Thief reveals to be a pro-feminist movie that exposes the anti-feminist history of World War II, perpetuating the traditional gender roles. Altogether, by analyzing The Book Thief in both a Marxist and feminist lens, it allowed for a thorough understanding of the effects World War II had on our society and economy today. The movie can be employed as an educational tool for the future, ultimately magnifying the society's consciousness on the impacts the major historic events, such as the Holocaust, have on our everyday lives.